Hello, huge congratulations on the movie.
Oh, thank you.
I I adored it. I've said it in every single room and I mean it. Um, I know it's been a little while for you since the future, but I also know you've been busy with many other things. Of everything you've accomplished between films, did you find that any of those other projects, experiences, or just working with different mediums came in handy for you here as a filmmaker?
Yeah, the probably the biggest thing I did between the two movies was I wrote a novel, and that novel was full of like twists and turns and reveals and reversals, and I remember thinking when I was writing that, what all this stuff would be really good for? A movie. Like movies, like all that stuff. And I hoped that I would still be interested, that I hadn't used up my interest in the book, and I hadn't. So I felt like I had those muscles kind of warm and ready to work with when I got to this movie.
So I know the story behind Old Dolio's name in the movie, but just for you writing a script and naming your characters, what inspired that choice to begin with?
In real life, my friend texted me that she had a dream that I had given birth to 10 kittens, and she had all the names written out in the text, and one of the names was Old Dolio, and I remember like being like, well, that's, can't forget that, I'm going to use that for something. Another name that I didn't use was marijuana.
Okay. That story behind the name is probably better than anything I could have made up just now. How much backstory did you create for this family? Because in watching the movie, this is a very full story here, but I did catch myself wondering what their very first con with Old Dolio was like. And it just seems like the family could suit a whole series.
Right, right. I did do a lot of working on the backstory, which I don't love. I don't love doing that stuff, but it does end up helping. And there are a lot of questions, and some of the actors love that stuff, have questions about the backstory. Some of them, like Richard Jenkins, is like, do not tell me anything. If it's not there, I don't need to know. But yeah, and they basically could ask me anything about the story, and I'd be like, oh, well, yeah, like I had written basically like a book's worth, but it was, yeah, at the ready.
Speaking of just different approaches to backstory, what is it like for you as a director who comes to set with a vision but is open to change it from day to day? What happens if you encounter an actor who needs a little help adjusting to something like that? Are there any tools in your toolkit to really ease them into it?
I mean, I think what I'm gathering from listening to my actors talk about me is that, yeah, you maybe think it's going to be this like whimsical, fun experience, but working with me, but actually because I'm a writer and because I kind of have a very clear vision of what I want, it's a matter of like fitting into that world. And then I'm also, kind of adapting to them at every step. I feel like I am. But I mean, for me, what it was like coming to understand each actor, and each of those four people works very differently and is, obviously a really different person. And so being able to like keep changing in a day, how I directed, how I invited them in.
So can you give us an example of the four of them? Like, what would you say are the two most extremes?
Well, on the one end, Evan, I kind of felt like I didn't even have to verbalize what I needed her to do. As long as I could feel it in my body and think it, I could sort of just give her like a look and a sort of very inarticulate mumble. And that wouddn't fly at all for, say, a Debra Winger. Like Debra Winger like wanted to sit down and have a conversation about like why, and maybe we should email about it or meet about it, or like she's really gonna do her homework. And so yeah, just so different, and it doesn't matter, it's like whatever works for them.
That's why I love asking about that. I love hearing about the varied processes out there because it all brings something differently creatively to a movie.
Yeah.
So this might sound like a very, very silly question, but what is the movie magic behind the pink foam?
You can't do it very many times, first of all. Like, there's a scene where it floods kind of the whole space, and we could do that one time, because there's no resetting after that. I mean, and so we had to get that right, and we did. And, you know, there's a whole machine behind that wall that has been built just to make those bubbles for this movie, just the right size and density and color. And I mean, it's so laborious and so fun to get to make something real like that, that you wrote, that's almost abstract, but not quite.
What happened to the machine?
It's off making bubbles somewhere else.
Okay.
Someone else's movie. I don't know.
I feel like as long as someone kept it and put it to use.
Yeah.
Very curious, because I feel like I could spot one of your movies from a mile away and know that it's yours. So if you had the opportunity to be a fly on the wall of another filmmaker's set and observe the way that they work, who would you choose and why?
Well, you know, it's funny. I act, but I'm not really an actor for hire. And when people ask me to be in their movies, I'm like, what? Go get a real actor. But there was this woman director, Josephine Decker, and I had seen her movies, and I was really like, how the hell does she make those? And then lo and behold, she asked me if I wanted to play a part in her movie. And I said yes, entirely as like an espionage mission as a director, just so I could see her methods. And it worked. It was great. I learned a ton, and it was so different than I would have guessed. So yeah, Josephine Decker, very different process for me, but so beautiful.
I very much appreciate that approach to working as an actor on set, especially as someone like her. I mean, her work is incredible. So what in particular is it about her that makes her stand out from any other director you've observed or worked with?
I mean, her work is so fluid. And I wondered, like, how does, you know, like, is there a script, or how do, you know, I came to realize that a lot of it has to do with that she's really an editor. So she's never has to worry. She has utter confidence that she can cut anything together, which really sets her free in terms of how she shoots and even how she writes and creates. She does a lot more in the moment, because it's almost like she's writing it afterwards. I mean, I don't know. That's my take. You know, you have to ask her.
I guess I'm allowed to say I love Shirley because they're both Focus Features movies now. Just to wrap up here, I've gotten very obsessed with finding the stories behind special thanks in movies, and I could figure out a bunch of yours and why they might have come to be. But the one that I'm curious about is If Beale Street Could Talk. How'd that wind up happening?
Well, did they thank us or did we thank them?
They thanked you.
Yeah, they thanked us because they were doing their reshoots when we were just finishing our movie. And so they took our crew, our key crew, and used them for their reshoots. So everyone from my movie suddenly was on that movie right afterwards. And I remember being like, hi, how's everyone doing? And people being like, we're really busy. We're working for Barry Jenkins now. And I was like, oh, okay. Why?
I kind of love hearing about like a collaboration like that. I didn't even realize that was a thing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. And again, huge congratulations on the movie.
Yeah, thank you so much.